We earlier told you that the first flight carrying asylum seekers from the UK to Rwanda will be going ahead later on today. Now, joining us to discuss that development is Arise analyst for East Africa, Mark Bichachi. Welcome to Newsday, Mark. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. Well, over the past couple of days or weeks, we have been hearing a lot of people calling out this plan as quite outrageous. We even had the Church of England calling it an immoral policy. Obviously, there's still machinations behind the scene. Can you give us an idea of what maybe some Rwandans think about the fact that they will be having an influx of convicts potentially coming into their country for the next 5 years?
Well, in terms of the Rwandan population, as you know, Rwanda is a pretty closed society. The president maintains a tight grip on public opinion. So you will not hear Rwandans talking against it. You will not hear Rwandans complaining because the nature of the country is basically a country whose press freedoms and freedom of expressions are highly curtailed. So you will not hear complaints as such. But also remember that this is a program that is somehow benefiting the people of, the government of Rwanda, simply because there are some resources that are associated with handling this particular issue on behalf of the UK. This is the UK basically exporting its immigrants to be processed in Rwanda and to live in Rwanda. Now, that is not a free process. So in as far as the government of Rwanda is concerned, this is an avenue to generate income. It's also an avenue to create some PR for the country of Rwanda to make it look like a safe haven. And that is what even the spokesman of the government of Rwanda has said, that they have a tradition of taking in people. They want to continue that tradition. So in terms of the Rwandan person, they have been acclimatized to one, accepting what the government is saying. And also how this is being spun to the Rwandese people is that this is what they do. This is what was done for them when they were immigrants themselves, when they were refugees. And so it's a continuation of that tradition. But at the same time, there is a benefit to the government of Rwanda.
Now, Mark, judges in the UK are expected to consider whether the policy is lawful or not next month. So what happens to those that have been taken to Rwanda if judges decide that it is not lawful?
Well, unfortunately for them, the state of immigration says that you apply for immigration where you are. So if they're not applying for immigration into the United Kingdom and they find themselves going through the process in Rwanda, it does not mean that they will be taken back to the United Kingdom. Those who will have landed, if they land later tonight in Kigali, will remain in Kigali. And remember, even if the judges do not reverse this rule and people apply for asylum in Rwanda, the signing of the deal will ensure that those who apply in Rwanda stay to study and live in Rwanda. And that is what the deal is. So essentially, this is the UK saying that, no, you're not welcome here. Instead, we will take you to Rwanda and the Rwandan government will deal with you from there.
And I want to take us back to the 18th century when Australia was used as the dumping point for prisoners from the UK. We've seen this happen before. Apparently, right now, the population of Australia, 1 out of every 5 Australians is a descendant of a convict. I'm just wondering how, demographically speaking, anthropologically speaking, how this might change the surface of Rwanda over the next coming years, if it's going to have any impact at all. Will the asylum seekers have any engagement with the outside population, or are they just going to be housed together and working on their applications to either get out of the UK or get some other kind of accommodations? What do you think?
So first and foremost, there is a precedent that has been set by the same Australian government in that they have a deal with the government of Papua New Guinea where they actually store immigrants there waiting to be moved into Australia should they win their petitions. But the issue has been that it has been a very expensive exercise. They only have about 230 immigrants who are costing them about $600 million. So the question, to answer your question, it depends on how many immigrants we are talking about. And remember, many of these immigrants remain of African descent. So it will not be a big racial difference between the Rwandese people and the people who are coming in. We're also talking about people from fleeing Afghanistan, people fleeing Syria, and these are Arabs. So we do not expect that there will be so much by way of the change of the culture of the Rwandese people. I don't think that is going to happen because, again, they're flying by the painful. I do not think they would have hundreds of thousands of immigrants. I think they would have perhaps maybe 1,000 over the next 5 years or so. It is not going to be so many people. Now, where will they be housed? They will be first be housed within an asylum-seeking location. It will almost be like a prison for them, and only upon successful application of your asylum will you be released into the Rwandese population, and even then you'll be closely monitored by the police. So I do not see this is going to create a shift in terms of the demographics of the Rwandan nation.
Now, like the United Nations noted, Rwanda's rights record is still under scrutiny. So I'd like to know, can asylum seekers who are unfairly treated by Rwanda, can they hold the British government liable if they were taken to Rwanda from the UK?
Yes, they can. And there's a precedence to this. The government of Australia, I've mentioned before, paid around $50 million to people who are seeking asylum and were mistreated in New Guinea in the holding facilities that were there. Let's call them prisons for the purposes of this conversation. And the government of Australia was forced to pay. So if there is any mistreatment, if there's any the removal of rights or abuse of human rights by the Rwandese government acting on behalf of the British government, then the British government can be sued under international law. So there's a precedent to that, and I think that is most likely what will happen given Rwanda's record.
And that's actually very good to know. Mark, you were talking earlier about the financial gain for the Rwandan government, seeing as how this is a deal between the two of them. I'm wondering, where does the money come from? Is this from the UK taxpayers? Where is this repatriation effort being funded, and to the tune of how much?
Well, the question of how much is still not been shared out. The details are not out yet. But just looking at what the Australians are spending, they're spending about $600 million to take care of these 230 odd immigrants. That's in New Guinea. Now, you would expect that the figures would be about the same, given that the United Kingdom is the one that's footing the bill. Now, given that it's the Foreign Secretary who's in charge of this, then I assure you that it's coming from the British taxpayer who will be paying for the Rwandan government to take care of this particular burden. So it will come out of the government exchequer in the UK, and it will be an annual payment simply because, if you remember, this was a Brexit promise that was created by Boris Johnson in terms of taking over immigration into the UK from the EU after the immigrant crisis that happened when the war in Syria broke out. So this is part of Brexit, and the government of the Britons will pay directly from their coffers.
In the meantime, there's been legal challenges to this UK's deportation plan. We understand that quite a number of people that were scheduled for removal on today's flight have won legal cases to be taken off and to remain in the UK. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, the thing is that the UK is taking advantage of international law, because international law does allow someone to seek asylum at the place of entry. So you can seek asylum literally in any country. But if they are able to keep you from filing your papers in the UK, then they are also able to extradite you and take you to another country where now you will apply asylum from there. So any person who has been able to access a lawyer or the court system in the UK and apply there, then they will be given an asylum hearing there. And once you get an asylum hearing, as the trial is going on, it cannot be moved from the UK to Rwanda, because the courts do not share a system, they do not share the same laws, and they do not have an agreement on the same. So there will be, even moving forward, a lot still asylum seekers seeking asylum within the UK without being extradited to Rwanda, simply because if you can get yourself into a UK court, you will have circumvented the system. But then again, we must ask ourselves that this issue also will begin to become an African and brown people issue because of the race concerns. Remember, much of Europe has welcomed Ukrainians, but this seems not to be welcoming people from a certain continent more than others. So these are going to be issues moving forward. I look forward to seeing how the cases will conclude. However, the judges have already indicated that there is no real legal basis upon which they can stop the government of the UK from doing these particular extraditions.
Well, we'll continue to follow that story. Thank you so much for joining us, Arise East Africa correspondent Mark Bichachi.